There was a beautiful being in Vancouver, Joyce Frazee, passed away recently. She had come to many of our gatherings, and she herself had become an effective teacher. And her form, through an illness, began to dissolve. And as it began to dissolve, and she found it more and more difficult to move, she would still come to our gatherings. More and more, the light of consciousness was shining through the fading form. And looking into her eyes was beautiful. I hope somebody took a photo of her so that you can look into her eyes and see that the unconditioned, the light of the unconditioned was shining through her eyes and through her entire form. It was shining through. And that is the beauty, that is the death, when death comes, that's the greatest portal, and she was able to surrender to that, so it was open wide. And it didn't matter anymore how much longer this form would be here. The flowering had happened. The fulfillment, consciousness flowering through this form. It happened. It doesn't need more time. It's flowered. It's the whole evolutionary impulse of the universe is towards that. Somehow, and I cannot explain it in words, it's beyond, we don't even attempt to really understand what is behind that. It is far beyond understanding, but it's just to say that the evolutionary impulse of the universe is behind that. Consciousness wants to flower through the form, the human. It will flower through any form. It doesn't say you are more worthy than this, I will choose this form because you are more worthy. It flowers where there is a transparency, where the form, the rigid mind structures give way. They die first. Identification with that, me, mind-made self, goes. And this is why we are here, because as you sit here, you are finding death before death finds you. And the mind structures that you identified with as me, the thought forms die. And so the flowering is happening here before death finds you. You embrace death already. But it doesn't matter when it happens. And consciousness will move through. It could be a criminal, killed several people, inflicted suffering on others, and of course on himself. And in that midst of hell, in his cell, waiting for execution, suddenly, inside, the entire structure of the self, mental, emotional structures, dissolves, because the suffering is unbearable. And suddenly, something shines through. And now he doesn't care anymore whether the execution happens or not. And there have been cases like that. There was a woman in Texas 2 or 3 years ago who had killed 2 people with an axe. She had been a prostitute, a drug addict, and with her lover killed 2 people with an axe. And she was on death row for several years. And at some point something happened in her, and the surrender happened. And suddenly there was a being of great softness, beauty through. There was not, the strange thing is there was not even guilt anymore, because guilt is still to be identified with unconscious movements as me, to derive your sense of self from the movement of unconsciousness and saying, I did that, that was me. She saw the dreadful nature of that, but it no longer disturbed her peace. That wasn't her at all. That was not the consciousness that had now emerged. And then she was executed. She interpreted it in a Christian sense, I believe, because that was her surrounding culture. When this happens, sometimes when people speak about it and tell others about what happened to them, they may use certain words that correspond to their language or culture. But when you look beyond the words, you will see that they all point to the same. And there are some of those to whom it happens who can't even speak about it. They just look at you, and you look at them. They may be uneducated, they may not have much to say. And yet you look and you see there's something that shines through that is deeper than a person, than any person could be. The personal dimension has given way to that. And so it is sacred when that happens. But so far it's been relatively few human beings to whom this has happened. No longer the case now. It is the destiny of all humans to go through that transformation.